Hey, what's up, everybody? This is going to be a Ring of Honor pay-per-view review of Border Wars, the internet pay-per-view from the website. Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a very, very good show. Definitely the best Ring of Honor experience over the last 6 months. I wouldn't say it was the best show that they've done in about a year. I don't think that would be accurate. It definitely was probably the best show they've done since Death Before Dishonor 9. I think that's very, very fair to say. From what I saw, it was a very, very consistently solid show that was kind of hurt right before the main event with the world's greatest tag team match. But other than that, you just had really, 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 really good wrestling on the show from top to bottom. So let's not waste any more time. We did have some problems, though. You cannot log into the site. The site actually crashed. So it took about maybe 17 minutes for me to log in. So we ended up missing the Rhino versus Eddie Edwards match, which, I could care less. I'm really burned out from Eddie Edwards, and Rhino's kind of hit or miss. But it seemed like an interesting matchup. So if you guys were there live, let us know how it was. I think that's the only way you would know how good the match was, is if you were there live, because you still cannot watch the pay-per-view yet. I don't think they have it available for replay yet. I'm not sure. But let's get right down to it. First match of the night, you had Mikey Mondo teaming up with the Young Bucks to take on the All Night Express and TJ Perkins. This was very, very good six-man tag action. Problem with the match at first was a lot of botches, a lot of blown spots, a lot of you fucked up chants. But as the match got going, there was some hot tags with Kenny King. And just some vintage action from the Bucks. The Bucks looked at home here. They looked a lot more comfortable than they've done in some past Ring of Honor efforts. And it got the right amount of time. It didn't go too long, and it didn't feel rushed. It just ended at the right. They just got the right amount of time to really get the fans into it. And Mikey Mondo, this guy looked very impressive. I've heard a lot of good things about him since Ring of Honor took over. Since Ring of Honor has been producing the television show. He's been, they've been bringing him on the show, and he's really improved from what I've heard. And yeah, I would agree. He looked very, very impressive here. He definitely blended in very nicely with both of these tag teams. And, yeah, man, I really, the crowd was really, really hot for this match. And, just a really, really awesome, six-man tag match. Next up, we have, Jay Lethal taking out Tommaso Ciampa from the Embassy. This has been a pretty, intense feud. I wouldn't say it's been a good feud or a great feud or a bad feud. It's just been kind of there, actually. Tommaso Ciampa's been kind of stalking Jay Lethal, was kind of obsessed to get the television title off of him, even if it didn't involve him actually winning the belt, as Roderick Strong won it at Showdown in the Sun. But Tommaso Ciampa's been kind of, antagonizing Lethal with his promos. They've been kind of Randy Savage-esque with him growing out a beard. Kind of him mocking the whole impersonation thing of the Randy Savage thing, saying that he, tries to make money off of other people and impersonates other people, and is a sellout to himself because he actually can't be himself. So, pretty deep stuff from that Tommaso Ciampa promo. But with this particular match, you had great drama with R.D. Evans and Prince Nana getting involved. So they really stacked the odds against Jay Lethal. This was good, though. A solid 3.5-star match, a high 3.5 stars. Definitely overachieved. This was as good as match as these two guys could have had. I mean, they could wrestle 100 more times after this, and they still probably wouldn't be able to top this. I mean, I just thought this was that good. It's not like Tommaso overly impressed me here, but given his limitations, I thought it was, like I said, I thought it was pretty much as good as it could have been. He did some beautiful stuff in this match, some good psychology with him targeting Lethal's head. He threw 5 consecutive running knees into the corner. And really, really some good intensity from Ciampa here. I thought it looked okay. Jay Lethal hit the hot finish. There's a lot of good action, good drama, good near falls, and he hit the lethal injection to finish him off. But, leading up to the finish, there was just a lot of good psychology, a lot of good drama. And, just really, really nice, hard-hitting action. Really, really enjoyed the match. So next up, we had the Prodigy Mike Bennett taking on Lance Storm. This was a rematch from Showdown in the Sun. Now, every time Lance Storm comes back, it's always a good experience. The guy is, somewhat of a legend, especially in Canada. Him being in Canada here, he definitely played that hero very, very nicely. And, Storm and Ring of Honor has always made a great combination. Whether it's his commentary on the website, on his website, or, coming back and facing Bryan Danielson in 2006 and that classic match at Better Than Our Best. He always seems to deliver in Ring of Honor. And out of anyone so far, he's definitely been the one guy that's gotten some pretty good stuff out of Mike Bennett. This was another good match between them, pretty much on the same level as the Showdown in the Sun match. Thing about this is Maria was not at ringside, so a lot of the fans were disappointed about that. But as far as the actual heat in the match, you had some good dynamics. This had the USA versus Canada dynamic going with, Bennett wearing the United States flag on his tights. And, the Canadian fans were just going crazy when Lance Storm countered the, Bennett's version of the half crab into his own version of the half crab submission hold. So yeah, just really, really good action. A beautiful finish from Lance Storm. He actually, there was a steel chair that Bennett brought into the ring, but behind the referee's back, Lance Storm actually clocked Bennett with the chair and then super kicked him right in the face to get the win. So yeah, Lance Storm used to use the super kick as his finisher back in the day. So it was nice to see him bust it out here again. And like I said, Lance Storm, 42, 43 years old. The guy is still, better than a lot of guys in the WWE today. So, just great athleticism from Storm. He looked great, and he carried Bennett to a pretty decent match, I would say. So right now, the show is in pretty nice gear. And once we got back from intermission, we actually had Adam Cole taking on Michael Elgin. Now, Adam Cole, to me, Adam Cole still has some room for improvement. I would say he's not as good as Kyle O'Reilly in the ring, but as far as being the total package goes, Mike's skills, how to build a feud in the ring and everything, I think Adam Cole is definitely superior. I think he has more of a Chris Jericho dynamic than a guy like Kyle O'Reilly. So yeah, Cole and Elgin, the two up-and-coming young guys, the two best up-and-coming young guys going at it, and this is a beautiful way to continue Michael Elgin's momentum. Adam Cole was kind of struggling with ways of how to outmaneuver, Elgin's strength. So he was really having a tough time. And then he did a beautiful job of countering some of Elgin's, high-powered offense with insecurities and, small packages. And just hit a lot of nice moves on Elgin. But this is Michael Elgin's match. He was in Canada, so once again, the Canadian fans were really, really hot for Michael Elgin. Like I said, it was a great way to continue his momentum from that classic match with Davey Richards. There's some beautiful things going on in this match. He hit the O'Connor roll into the Chaos Theory. Once again, Nigel marks out on commentary for that move. And once again, as you guys know, Doug Williams, Nigel's former tag team partner, used to do the same thing. So, great stuff there. Also, he hit a beautiful Falcon Arrow. He actually picks Adam Cole up from outside of the ring, brings him into the ring, and suplexes him off the top rope with the Falcon Arrow. So I thought that was awesome. Like I said, Elgin, once again, definitely had the crowd in the palm of his hands. And there was actually a pretty nice tease with Truth Martini came into the ring. There was kind of a babyface, tease. You might have been wondering if Elgin was going to snap and just murder Martini after Martini kind of stole his thunder after the match. So that was pretty, like I said, just really, really good stuff from Cole and Elgin. Probably the match of the night up to that point, in my opinion. So next up, we have Finlay taking on Roderick Strong. This is somewhat of a dream match for me, but I felt very, very disappointed, very deflated. This felt like your typical Roderick Strong match, and not a good version of Roderick Strong. Sometimes when he plays a heel and tries to dictate the tempo of the match with his controlled segments, I think the match kind of falls flat. This fell flat the same way his match with Chris Hero fell flat, and not the first time we've seen Roderick mix it up with a legendary veteran. If you guys remember his match with Kensuke Sasaki back in Japan from 2008, I thought that was very disappointing as well. But with this match, it just felt like Finlay didn't have much creative input. I don't know, because he wrestled in Evolve last night. Maybe he didn't get over the border in time for them to really plan out a better match. Just didn't feel like, a lot of people were kind of, hoping that Finlay's creative input would definitely help change, some of the psychology of some of the Ring of Honor matches. But, I think they tried to do it. Roderick tried to tell a pretty good story, but it kind of fell flat. The fans really didn't buy into it. Maybe some of it had to do with Finlay's style the fans were really kind of, they felt very disconnected at this point in the card. They definitely were not that hot for this match. But Finlay did look good, though. Finlay definitely had his moments. But overall, the finish was kind of weak. Roderick actually hit the sick kick. Kind of came out of nowhere. But, still solid stuff. There was still enough stiff action to pretty much enjoy this and give it a 3-star rating. I was just hoping for a lot better and a lot more. Definitely, if you guys were expecting the kind of magic that Finlay and Sami Callihan pulled off at Evolve 9, you might be kind of disappointed. All right, so next up we have the Briscoes taking on World's Greatest Tag Team. This is actually a fight without honor. This has definitely been one of the worst feuds in Ring of Honor history. It definitely feels very, very forced. A lot of it has to do with Charlie Haas trying way too hard on the promos and Shelton Benjamin just not giving a fuck. I think a lot of it has to do with that. And I don't know, man. At first it seemed like a good idea to bring in Haas and Benjamin, but I don't know. If Ring of Honor has a chance not to renew their contracts, I definitely would not renew them. I don't know what it is. These two teams, their matches are just very unwatchable. If some of you guys hated their match from Final Battle, I hated it as well. Every time these guys get into the ring, it just sucks. And this was still disappointing. I thought maybe with the fight without honor stipulation, we might get something going here. They did a pretty cool thing with Mark Briscoe coming out of nowhere in a hockey jersey to kind of, bring some heat to the match, but eventually it died out. At times this felt very, very boring and very, very unwatchable, but there was other times when it did pick up. I think Mark took a brutal table bump, and then on top of that, you had Shelton Benjamin do his Falcon Arrow, leaping onto the top rope. And then, it looked like this match was going to have a lot of nice, solid action, a lot of good intensity. But for whatever reason, it slowed down. There was a brutal, fuck up. I don't know if it was a fuck up. It just came off very, very awkward. They tried to do some type of electric chair through the table. And there was a really awesome tease with Mark Briscoe doing the yes chant thing. He was kind of, sliding back and forth with the yes chant, and it looked like he was going to do a doomsday device off the top rope through a table, but then Charlie Haas cut him off and hit him with the ankle slam or Olympic slam from the back. And then after that, Charlie actually took a cloth and put ether on it and actually choked out Mark Briscoe. Nigel and Kevin Kelly sold it very well. They said Charlie Haas should be banned from Ring of Honor and suspended for going against the Code of Honor. And so I thought the commentary was pretty good there. But overall, this is just going to escalate the feud to Best in the World. I guess they'll have their blow-off match at Best in the World, where we'll finally see an end to this very, very bad feud. This feud has been so bad that it's actually hurting the company. It's not really the Briscoes' fault, though. I think a lot of it you could blame on Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin for just, the matches have just sucked ass, and the promos have been somewhat brutal between, with Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin as well. Kind of, especially with Charlie Haas, kind of being exaggerated when it comes to some of the promos. Just a lot of forced heat, I would say, from Charlie Haas on some of those promos leading up to the matches. All right, so let's just get on to the main event. We have Davey Richards versus Kevin Steen for the Ring of Honor World title. I have to say this match had great build-up, great video packaging. Giving Steen the belt was a beautiful decision. I think if they would have waited any longer than this, you would have ran into the same problems that you've been running into with not giving the guys the belt at the right time. It was a perfect night to do it. They were in Canada. There was a nice tease with Steve Corino at ringside and Jimmy Jacobs. I was thinking for a part of the match that, you might do a double turn with turning Davey heel, having him side with Jimmy Jacobs and Steve Corino, but that would have been very, very TNA-esque, and I don't think that would have made a lot of sense because Davey doesn't have any history with either guy. So definitely glad that they didn't, do something screwy like that. And this is a lot of fun. I wouldn't say it was an amazing match. I would probably give it a solid 4-star rating. It was fun. It wasn't as, don't expect the type of drama that the Michael Elgin Davey match gave you, but this match might have been a little bit more fun. Obviously, Steen is from Canada, so a lot of the fans were definitely, anti-Davey Richards. Davey Richards got a lot of Cena type of heat. He got a lot of same old shit chants. He got a lot of fuck you Davey chants, and, Kevin Steen was, a lot of people have really been taking a liking to Kevin Steen. Pretty much, some people would agree, carrying Ring of Honor over the last year, being how depleted the roster is right now. So, congratulations to Kevin Steen. with winning the Ring of Honor World Title. You know, this guy's been through a lot of injuries, and he's done a lot in 5 years. He's definitely think it's well deserved. And you know, as far as the actual match goes, there's when Davey actually pulled out the DR driver. Beautiful stuff there. You know, it definitely felt like Davey had another weapon in his arsenal that he could, you know, rely on. And Kevin Kelly definitely sold that move really, really well. So, yeah, that was good stuff. There was some really, really nice counters from the ankle lock into the sharpshooter. Fans are going crazy for some of that stuff. Really, I mean, and then Kevin Steen actually hit the package power driver to get the win. And like I said, just, you know, some good near falls. You know, Kevin kicked out of a lot of, you know, vicious kicks from Davey. Really, what else to talk about here? I mean, they did do some brutal stuff. There was a brutal suplex on the edge of the ring apron from Davey to Steen. I think it was an exploder off the edge of the ring apron. So, I mean, they really packed in a lot of good action. The match didn't feel like it went too long. I think it went the right amount of time. It was like a solid 20-minute 4-star match. I had a lot of fun with it. You know, it's not probably a match of the year candidate, but, you know, still great stuff, and definitely a great moment. You know, Kevin Steen actually celebrates with Jimmy Jacobs and Steve Corino at the end of the show. So there we go with that. You know, Border Wars, I'd say, was very, very good. You know, you had a lot of solid wrestling here, and then you had a pretty awesome main event. And so we'll see what happens now. Now that this Davey Richards title reign is finally over, it just feels like they're off to a fresh start again. And I definitely think it's a move that they had to do. You know, financially keeping Davey as the champion, I don't think it would have been the best move, considering how attendance was so down at the 10th anniversary show, and you know, the negativity around Ring of Honor was definitely at an all-time low with some fans. It's definitely a breath of fresh air. So you know, Davey Richards, congratulations. He had his 11-month world title reign. I thought it was probably one of the worst title reigns you've seen that lasted almost a year. Just bad promos and just very, very dull matches. A lot of it had to do with the booking, but I think a lot of the blame you could blame on Davey himself, for not really, you know, bringing the same kind of attitude that brought him to the dance. You know, and the whole MMA jiu-jitsu thing kind of backfired on him as well. So it's a pretty interesting story. You know, I've never seen this really happen in a while, or really happen at all. You know, with you know, so many people consider Davey the best in the world. I think a lot of it had to do with guys like Kenta, guys like Bryan Danielson, Tyler Black. He was in the ring with great guys that made him look good, but I think once you took those guys out of the equation, boom, he's stuck with guys that kind of mirror the same type of personality and quality that he's about, like Eddie Edwards and Roderick Strong. So I think that has a lot to do with it, you know. So, you know, and on top of that, I think him being a long-term babyface was never really something that should have been in the cards for Davey Richards. So that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Definitely go watch the show. I thought it was a pretty great show. I'll probably give it about maybe an 8.0, 8.25. So that's pretty much it. Take it easy.